Knock, knock. Welcome to our guest. I have a little knock, knock joke in store for you. So, knock, knock. Mr. Ciron, are you there? Hmm. Seems as if I may not be knocking loud enough. So, why don't you folks at home do it with me? So, three, two, one. Say it together. Knock, knock, Mr. Ciron. Let's wait for him to come. Well, who's there? The guest will ask. Let's just do it together ourselves. It's Friday. Friday who? Fridays are just awesome. Sorry for that little weird thing, but we're quirky here at CKOP and we'll just vibe with each other. I'm Daryl Curry, and with this particular Friday, we're leading ourselves into a 3-day weekend for most people across America because January 17th is Martin Luther King Day. May he rest in peace. It is actually named for the American Baptist minister and civil rights leader who was actually born on January 15th in 1929. But for more than 3 decades, the federal holiday that honors his accomplishments has been celebrated on the third Monday in January. Public events, marches, speeches by civil rights leaders and politicians are all a part of it. And the US government recognizes Martin Luther King Day Jr. Day.
I'm in now, Neil, right?
There you are, sir. We're just talking with the guests about the background of Martin Luther King Day. I may not be knocking loud enough, so why don't you folks at home do it with me? So, 3, 2, 1, say it together. Knock, knock, Mr. Ciron.
Oh, who's there?
Friday.
Friday who?
Fridays are just awesome. So that's just a play-by-play. Finally got that little not joke sorted out. So to go back to where I was going with the whole public service thing, it's said to be a day on, not a day off. And the goal of that is to encourage Americans to volunteer in their communities and to improve them. Dr. King himself was a leader of the Montgomery Improvement Association, named for the city of Montgomery, Alabama, which is now known as the birthplace of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement in the 1950s. Dr. King had a reputation for being an eloquent speaker. He felt strongly that peaceful events, like marches, were the best methods of achieving civil rights for African Americans. Sir, take it away.
His influence was grown when he founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957, and in 1963, he led the March on Washington, where he delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. The next year, Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, Darrell, when changes within the civil rights movement and the occasional discouragement challenged him in the late 1960s, Reverend King found revival through his Christian faith, as you'll learn more later tonight. We're kicking off the annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. observance here in Delray Beach tonight. And tonight's segment is devoted to highlighting Dr. King's legacy in hopes of educating our young people about a man whom many have heard about, but very few knew much about.
Isn't that the truth? A note, on Sunday at 3 p.m., there will be an all-faith service on Zoom. The address is on your screen, and you can visit KOPMN's Facebook page or website for more information, in case you missed it. There will also be a virtual brunch on Monday. That info, as you see, is also now on your screen.
In observance of KOP Mentor Network's 30th anniversary, we will hold a community fish fry on the first Friday of each month. This month, being January, will be a meet and greet from 6 to 9 p.m. on the patio at 400 West Atlantic Avenue. That's in the business district. Each month will be a different theme. February will be bingo, and March will be card games. We will be celebrating January birthdays, and there will be prizes given out throughout the evening. Speaking of birthdays, our very own Asiana Livingston is celebrating her 17th birthday today, and we're told that she is taking her written portion, rather the written portion of her driver's license test today. In fact, as we speak, she's taking the test. So happy birthday, Asiana, and good luck on your driver's test. Hopefully you'll do much better than Neil. I had a chance to watch him the other day as he practiced, and I'll leave the rest for later. Anyway, so as we were saying before Neil diverted me, seating is limited at the fish fry to only 50. Yes, he did. Yes, he diverted me. He put that in front of me, so I had to read it. Seating is limited to only 50, so make sure you are there early. Cost of the meal is only $7, which includes a fish sandwich and a beverage or a bottle of water. Okay. Social distance protocol will be observed. And folks, this is a family gathering, so feel free to bring the kids out for dinner. If you're interested in getting your meal to go, let us know in advance and we will reserve your meal for you. You can get your tickets on eventbrite.com, or you can call 561-665-0151 to reserve your tickets. You can also get your tickets and donate them to a needed family around the city. You can get it and call us at that number, and we'll be sure to get it ready and have it for a needed family. Thanks to the law firm of Ms. Franklin and Franklin Consulting Firm for their donation of their meal.
Let me say thank you to all the adults, parents, grandparents, educators, and responsible community servants who every Friday night hang out with us to share ideas and instill value in us young people. We hear from you in the streets, we get your texts and emails, and we value your feedback. You are indeed making a contribution to your community, and for that we say thank you for all that you have done over the past 10 months.
So, last month we heard from several of our county's finest youth speakers. Wow, that was a mouthful, Neil. Wow, why'd you do that to me? Last we heard from several of our county's finest youth speakers in the Dr. Martin Luther King Oratorical Contest. And tonight we're honored to have 3 of the top 4 winners with us. There actually was a tie in the race for 3rd place, and we have last year's winner, Miss Janaya O'Mara, who was one of this year's 3rd place winners, to share her presentation with us. Miss Janaya, how are you? Janaya? There she is. How are you?
I'm good, Mr. Sheeran. How are you?
Wonderful. So you are the reigning champion from last year. How was it last year? How was it as a champion
I'm
going
good.
around? Good. And I take it that this year, so as not to be selfish, you decided to yield that title to someone else who finished 1st place this year. I'm very thoughtful of you, very considerate. Go ahead and open your microphone, Janaya. Leave it open. So, Janaya, what do you have for us today? Tell us about your presentation.
So the topic from the last essay was whether or not we needed the Electoral College to pick our president. So I'll be presenting my essay from that topic.
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay. It says, if there was a way to simply explain whether or not the Electoral College benefits the presidential election, the answer would be no. But of course, nothing is that simple. An explanation is key. Originally, the Electoral College was created by the Founding Fathers to be the best way to pick a president. To elaborate on that point, They said that the Electoral College ensures that all parts of the country are involved in selecting the President of the United States. How about we go ahead and put all our trust into some people in a room somewhere discussing who should be the next president, while people at home hope and pray that they pick with their heart over their selfish brains. People say that their vote doesn't matter because their vote doesn't. How can you blame them? With this electoral college, it does not count, but it can if we would use the people's vote, the popular vote. As citizens of this country have say in energy. It's so much more than just standing in line and doubling in some bubbles on some paper. It's telling the government, hey, I've been listening and watching and I want some change. However, it's not like we can see or hear what these people are doing and saying. That is another problem. We as citizens have what happens behind closed doors. All we can look at is election numbers on the television for the popular vote fluctuate like a never saw. Oh, but then they're partisan, which means that if one electoral in one state is all Republicans, it's not rocket science to figure out who they'll vote for, and vice versa for Democrats. There's absolutely no way that we can know what is happening in this world that we live in affects them. Probably not. But who cares, right? So as a final note, it is 2020. 231 years since the first president was elected. To the founding fathers of this country, your electoral college is no irrelevant to this time. And to the recent upcoming administration, show us some, make us believe that vote matters. And we do, maybe this new generation of voters will listen to what you have to say. Thank you.
It was an excellent speech, Anaya. What motivated you to even participate in the oratorical contest in the first place?
I think what motivated me the most is that the topics are very, they're relevant to like what's happening in our time. And also I really like to write, and most of the things that I write about affect the people that are closest to home, like family members, my friends, my school. So it's just writing for me. I find it very calming. It's something that I like to do. So that's what motivated me.
You know, Janaya, I'm getting texts from folks that they weren't able to hear you because the feed was broke up. So what we're going to do is next week, we're going to have you come back, if you don't mind, and say your part again. How about that?
Okay.
Can you pencil us in your schedule for next week?
Yes, I can.
We're quite grateful for that. Thank you, Janaya, and we'll see you next week. How about that?
Okay. Enjoy your evening.
Likewise, darling. Thank you. Dara, what do you have?
All right. Just a warm welcome to our fellow guests who remain loyal to us on the daily. Warm welcome to our friends who are joining us on KOP Mentor Networks or Boca Raton Tribune's Facebook pages or on YouTube in itself. This segment of Community Conversation is brought to you by the generous donation of Healthier Delray Beach, Blanc New Looks Barbershop, Genuine Tax Services, DNA Total Fitness, Israel Krieg, Marsha Eisenberg, and Doug Young. Thanks to our sponsors, we're able to bring you community conversation each week. As you interact with your friends and neighbors, please tell them to like our sponsors on Facebook and follow them on Instagram. Hopefully you don't stumble in that process like I did. We thank them for caring about our youth. To learn more about how you can support our mentoring programs, call 561-665-0151.
And now it's time for our third place winner, Miss Delina Johnson. And Miss Johnson, join us, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, clean as a whistle. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
We are just so honored that you agreed to grace us with your face on camera tonight, Delina. Folks, for those who are watching for the past, since the pandemic started, this is probably the first time I've seen Delina on camera. She is always one of those, her camera never works when it needs to Oh, yes, folks, we're getting your
Well,
text. We're getting your text that you could not hear the first speaker. She'll be back next week, and you'll hear her again. So, Ms. Delina, we are just so grateful. What a beautiful smile, countenance you have. We're just so
Thank you.
grateful that your camera decided to work tonight. Thank God for that. But anyway, Delina, you're an artist, and you say you sing, and you play the instrument, and but you also speak. Because
Yes, I do.
you do, yeah. Based on your presentation a few weeks ago, you finished third place. Yeah, and what was your speech about?
My speech was about the Electoral College in the same way as Janiyah spoke, even though we weren't able to hear her. It was basically how the Electoral College has been an imperative factor in basically determining who the next president of the United States will be.
And tell me about it. Go ahead.
Okay, I will. The Electoral College has been an imperative factor in determining who the next president of the United States will be every 4 years. This topic has been discussed amongst many people and arose a multitude of controversies. Many people believe that the Electoral College is a great determining factor of who the United States president should be. On the other hand, there are people who believe that the popular vote should dictate who the next president will be. Many still don't understand the purpose of the Electoral College in its entirety and claim that it should be abolished. Here is how it all began. The Electoral College was originally a compromise created by the Founding Fathers. This compromise arose as a result of several various proposals. When the Electoral College was proposed, not everyone had the amnesty to vote. Women and people of color did not have the prerogative to be able to vote. The Electoral College was designed to help potential candidates win the election without the majority of voters' support. The electors are selected by the political parties within the state that they live in. The electors in each of the states have to consider the popular vote. They cannot veer off into another direction and ignore the voices of the people. As mentioned earlier, this topic has sparked controversy immensely. When an individual goes to the polls to cast their vote on a presidential candidate, they are, in fact, voting for a political party's elector in that state. Presidential candidates tend to allow their time and resources into swing states with a substantial amount of electoral votes. This, in turn, will provide assistance to the presidential candidates in helping them reach the number of electoral votes that they need in order to win the election. After taking this into consideration, I believe that the Electoral College should not be used to determine who the next president of the United States will be. Even though a presidential candidate loses an election by the popular vote, they are still presented with the opportunity to win by the Electoral College. There are some states who don't bind their electors, and they can be oblivious to the popular vote and choose who they want to win. Based on an article published by Andrew Prokop in Vox, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures, about 30 of the 50 states have passed laws binding their electors to vote in accordance with the presidential popular vote in their state. This excerpt illustrates the claim that not all of the popular votes are represented. Many of the electors honor the popular vote, but there are still some who choose not to. I believe that the government should choose to honor the popular vote and let the people decide who they think is best. We, the people, should be able to choose the fate of the United States. The voices of the people should not be silenced. They need to be heard. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Miss Johnson. Quick question. Do you see yourself in the political arena someday?
Personally, I do not see myself in the political arena. I prefer not to do that. But
Why?
I mean, you never know where the future will take you.
I have a friend. He served as our mayor for a while in Delray. He had no intention of being mayor. He was a very good, highly respected journalist around town, and there needed to be some changes in his community. Someone tapped him, asked him if he would help out, and he helped. He stepped in, and before you know it, did very well in the city and served the people, nobly. So I'm sure that just never know what the future holds for you.
Yes, when a myriad of different problems and concerns arises
Was
in
it
the
who?
community. When a myriad,
What does that mean? What's that? Myriad. What?
it's similar
Tell Ms. Franklin what that means.
saying,
Myriad.
it's similar to saying a multitude of, or an immense amount
Oh,
of.
you must go to Middle School of the Arts.
Yes, I did.
And
I
where are you
went
now?
to Bach Middle School for 3 years as a piano major.
Okay. You learned Myriad at Bach or Dwyer? Where?
I actually learned it from reading one of the books that I've just picked up recently. And
Wow.
I feel like reading, it really helps you advance your vocabulary and you learn a myriad of new words.
Wow. Tell you what, this is what I'm gonna ask you to do. Next week, we're gonna have some high school students in here, and they're gonna be talking about the news of the day, the insurrection. Insurrection. Did I say that right? Insurrection?
Yes.
The insurrection and the inauguration. That's correct, right? Insurrection and the inauguration. I'd be honored to have you join us next Friday. Can we count on you?
I would be honored to.
Oh, well, no. We'll be honored to have you. Your camera's going to be on too, right?
Yes, it will be on. My camera will be working.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Johnson. Guys, we had 2 other speakers who were Kaylee Harris. She's our second place winner, and Kayla will be speaking on Sunday at the ecumenical service. That's another word. Wow, ecumenical. Ecumenical. Don't know how to spell it, but they wrote it, so I just read it. Ecumenical service. I think that means all faith. Am I correct, Daryl?
Yes, sir.
Ecumenical. See, ecumenical service on Sunday, and Kayla will be speaking there, as well as on Monday morning. Our first place winner, Deron DJ Blake, he'll be speaking on Monday at the Spadey Museum breakfast or brunch, and he's speaking there as well as later in the speaking at the fairground. You know, Daryl, this young man has such a busy schedule this weekend. We tried to get him on to speak tonight, and his schedule was booked. He said, Mr. Seaby, you should have let me know this about 3 weeks ago. Try to get him on to speak on Sunday. He could not accommodate us in his schedule on Monday. So I'm led to believe that the only other people who have a busier schedule is Congressman Adam Schiff, probably Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. This young man, you got to book three weeks in advance. But anyway, someone who we were able to get tonight to be with us, we called and asked him, and he gladly accepted. We're honored to have someone who knows quite well Dr. King's teaching. In fact, he is his fraternity brother, and I guess they both were educated at that Atlanta institution called Morehouse. Oh, better known as the House. They were educated at the House. Brother Nix.
Am I on?
Yes, sir. You
now you got to get that right. There's a difference between Spelman and Morehouse. A big difference.
Yeah,
so,
I thought they both were in Atlanta.
Yeah, they were. One is all female and one is all male. But anyway, moving along.
Anyway, I heard that you and Dr. King and Mr. John pledged the same fraternity. Why don't you tell us about that? By the way, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. You want me to start my talk in general or just
you have it, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's all yours.
Okay. Because I know time is of essence, and I really appreciate you bringing me on. This is one of my favorite subjects, meaning Dr. Martin Luther King and his journey towards freedom. And it's a beautiful segue because of what you just did with Delina Johnson. Martin Luther King didn't know what he was going to do. Just like Delina said, she wasn't sure what she was going to do. But God had a plan and has a plan for both of them. So what I want to talk about very briefly, I know I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but what caused Martin Luther King to want to be what we now know as Martin Luther King, peacemaker, Moses, leading his people towards freedom. And of course, he didn't do it all by himself. But you have to understand this, and this is the amazing thing. Martin Luther King's family, Dr. King was pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, which was started by Martin Luther King's grandfather. Okay, so he started it, then the father started. So one would think that Martin Luther King would be heir apparent. Martin Luther King actually was Michael King for the longest time until his father decided he wanted to adopt the name Martin Luther, the Reformer. So, of course, since he was a junior, Martin Luther King became Junior. Prior to that, he was Mickey. So just like in the Bible, Abraham, his name was Abram, and then he got changed. Martin Luther King got changed. And I believe it's because God had a special plan for him. And I'm going to start this in 1935. The young lady talked about the fact Martin Luther King was born in 1929. In 1935, on the campus of Howard University, Mordecai Johnson, then president of Howard, the first African-American president, got a request from India to send one of his faculty members over to help India start a college. He didn't choose somebody in the Department of Education. He didn't choose anybody in the Department of the Dean of Law. He chose his college roommate at Morehouse. Both of them went to Morehouse. A man by the name of Howard Thurman, who incidentally grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida. Howard Thurman was a minister. Mordecai Johnson was a minister. Howard Thurman went over in 1935 to start a college, but he wanted to meet this person called Mahatma Gandhi because he had heard so much about him. Mahatma Gandhi was a Hindu lawyer who in 1909 had been asked, like Rosa Parks, to get off the bus. Actually, it was get off the train. He tried his best to do what he could in South Africa. He moved back to India, his home, and he started a movement to get the British out, to get freedom in the mind of the Indians. Howard Thurman went over and talked to him. This is Mahatma Gandhi. Howard Thurman talked to him. They talked for 4 hours. They're both spiritual and gentlemen. And they went back and forth, Hindu, Christian. At the end of that conversation of 4 hours, Mahatma Gandhi said something prophetic. He said to Howard Thurman, I believe that the Negro will take the unadulterated principle of nonviolence to the world. I believe the Negro will do that. Thurman said, I thought that's what you were trying to do. He said, yeah, but it won't happen here for various reasons. But I believe it can happen in America and the Negro will do it. Understand, the year was 1935. Martin Luther King was 6 years old. That's prophetic. Howard Thurman went back to Howard to talk to then Mordecai Johnson because he was all excited about what Mahatma Gandhi had said. Howard Thurman talked to, in fact, Mordecai Johnson said, I want the whole faculty to hear about this young man, 1935. So he pulled the whole faculty together to listen. In the audience, in the School of Divinity, was a man by the name of Benjamin Elijah Mays. He was a professor. He decided to bring 2 of his students, Sam Williams and James Former. 1935, gentlemen. I want you to keep that, young ladies and children, in mind. He brought them together. Howard Thurman told the story of Mahatma Gandhi and everybody got excited, and that was left there. But God knew that what he was doing is carrying a message. That's a picture of Howard Thurman right there. The next one you will see, if he goes back, is Mordecai Johnson. So he went back to Howard. That's Mordecai Johnson. The building you will see is Howard University, where all of this is happening. Now, so Benjamin Mays brought his students. They heard it. 1935. 5 years later, God said, let me set the stage for Martin Luther King, who's now in middle school. Deena Johnson, you don't know what might happen and what God is planning for you. He said Benjamin Mays to Morehouse to become president of Morehouse. Benjamin Mays took Sam Williams to teach religion. Howard Thurman moves to Boston University. Mordecai Johnson stays where he is. The stage is set. Martin Luther King has to get up and into Montgomery in 20 years. That's Sam Williams, who was his teacher. Martin Luther King goes to Morehouse College, decides to major in sociology, doesn't want to have anything to do with his daddy and pastoring. Sam Williams teaches him in the junior year. He decides in his class he now wants to be a minister. Sam Williams' class. He goes to his daddy, he says, I want to do ministry now. I don't want to do sociology. God's working his plan on Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King graduates from Morehouse 1948, goes and gets a master's degree in Crozier, and then just trying to decide where he wants to go to get his PhD. Howard Thurman calls his daddy and says, why don't you send him up to Boston University? I'll make sure he does well. They know each other. Martin Luther King goes up to Boston University to get his PhD, which he does. Now, here's the beauty of the thing. Remember, God's got a plan in Montgomery, Alabama. Martin Luther King is graduating in Boston. You know he's heir apparent in Ebenezer in Atlanta. How do we get Martin Luther King to Montgomery when he's got a church in Atlanta? Like a lot of gentlemen, he's a ladies' man. He meets a young lady walking across the campus in Boston University by the name of Coretta Scott. She's an opera singer. They fall in love. And she says, I don't want to go back to Atlanta. I want you to come close to my home, which is close to Montgomery, Alabama. I want you all to see this now. This is how God works. He puts in an application. He gets Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, the cornerstone you're seeing right there. Founded in 1877, which was the end of Reconstruction. It's at that church that Alabama State and HBCU was founded. It was in that church that Selma State College and HBCU was founded. There's a connection. There's a divine connection here. He goes to Montgomery. Pull up the thing that shows Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, because this is amazing if you ever go to Montgomery. Dexter Avenue Church is right down the street from the state capitol of Alabama. It is the only brick building in that area. Think about, yes, now that's Dexter. The next shows how close it is to the capitol. Right up the street there is the Capitol of Alabama. The next building to it is a white building because they're all part of the Capitol complex. This is where God puts Martin Luther King, in the shadow of Alabama. Now, I get happy with this. The thing you understand is, this is George Wallace's castle, if you will, where he said segregation past, segregation now, segregation forever. Dexter puts Martin Luther King there. And the other thing that's very interesting is this is the heart of the Confederacy. This is where Jefferson Davis and the White House. So Dexter is right down the street. He goes to Dexter. Dexter is also a street that used to be called Market Street. You just saw up there, that street was called Market because that was where the domestic slave trade was built. When they stopped slavery from coming over from Africa, they had to do something. So they went and they developed a slave trade market in Alabama, and this is the largest one. That's at the base of Dexter. I want you to think about this now. The Lord puts Martin Luther King's church, sends him there. At the bottom of that hill is where the domestic slave, and we're making a statement, God's making a statement now. That is also the place where Rosa Parks was picking up a bus and said no. This is divine intervention, is what I'm trying to tell you, children, and everybody who listens. He said no there. We know the rest. Martin Luther King started. Oh, that's the other thing. Martin Luther King was 28 years old. That's the house he stayed at. That's the house he stayed. That's the one that they bombed with he and his children and his family in there. And that's about 6 blocks away from the Capitol. Martin Luther King was a minister. Monica Johnson was a minister. Monica Johnson. Howard Thurman was a minister. Benjamin Mays is a minister. Sam Williams is a minister. His daddy was a minister. His granddaddy was a minister. God was all in his life. And the point was to get us in prayer, in kneeling, with courage, with no fear, to free us in our minds. And that's what the civil rights did. We were freed physically in 1865. God knew we needed to free our minds. So in 1968, as we went through and changed the laws, we finally freed, and the Lord took Martin home by saying, well done. That's why I put you. You never know what he's going to do. That statue was put on the mall by the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity to remind America who Martin Luther King was. The only other statue of Martin Luther King is at Morehouse College. And there's a statue of him pointing. Get to the end. If you read the statue quote, that's the statue. One more, and I want to read it and I'll be through. If you read that, if you could, what he says is, if you protest, I can't read it exactly. If you protest in dignity and in Christian way, later the history books will be written, and it says, there goes a people, a black people, who added civilization to the world's history. In other words, what he was saying is what Mahatma Gandhi said: the Negro will bring the unadulterated truth of nonviolence to the world. And that's what we have done. And that's why you and I are here today, doing and going to schools wherever we want. So it was divine intervention. Martin Luther King, but Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, John Lewis, all of them were ministers. And so that's why we say, keep the faith, keep hope alive.
Boom, shakalaka.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Beautiful.
Now,
testimony.
Mr. Nix, we're almost out of time now, but what I'd like for you to come back in the coming weeks and talk to us a little about the contributions that Dr. King made to young people, or the contributions, if any, he made, if he made any, that we, our young people, have benefited from, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. And I'm going to talk about the student movement, because there's a connection there.
Way to go. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You know, hold up now. The texts are coming in. This one says, very eloquently said. Another said, I only have a high school degree, but I got a master's Thank you, Mr. Bill Nix. And since TJMS left us, since Tom Joyner Morning Show left us, we haven't had anything like this. Can you get him RM? Can you get him MO more often? Can you get him more often? So, Mr. Nix, we'll be talking about that offline. Thank you, callers. Daryl, it's all yours.
All right, special welcome to our friends in the Bahamas, Belize, Jamaica, Tobago, and the US Virgin Islands, adding Canada to the list from last time. Please remember to share community conversation on your social media pages. If you missed the show, you can find it on Boca Raton Tribune or QP Mentoring Network's Facebook pages.
Okay, and tonight's show is produced by Miss Jonaldina Bazua, graduating senior at Atlantic Community High School, as well as the Milagro Center. Daryl Don Lemon Creary, a graduating senior at Atlantic Community High School, is serving as our co-host. And actually, he's not co-host. He is the big host these days. Our illustrious cinematographer, Neil Sunsky Noel, is our producer these days. And he's a proud product of Village Academy and KOP Mentoring Network. We welcome Miss Jasmine Collins, a sophomore at Florida State University, and she is our social media intern. Speaking of social media, folks, will you please follow us on Facebook if you're not doing so yet? That's a KOP Mentoring Network, and like us, as Miss Dina has requested that please, sir, please, ma'am, like us on your social media pages. Now, as our nation observes the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, there's much build up to Inauguration Day, which is 5 days away, when Joe Biden will be sworn in as the 46th president. There's much to say, a lot to say about what is happening in our country today. So let's bring in Mr. John. So, brother man, all I do have for you tonight is two questions. My first is, what do you think? How's it going?
Man, it's going well. How are you guys?
Great, man. Wasn't your frat brother Bill Nix something?
Man, unbelievable. Brother is a walking encyclopedia, almanac, history book, whatever you want to call it.
Hey,
brother knows his history. Absolutely.
Must be an alpha man. He may not be able to step like the Omegas out there, but he sure know his history.
Absolutely. Great brother.
So, John, what do you think Dr. King's reaction would be in light of what's happening in our nation today, and especially over the last week? And the second question I'd like for you to just touch on, we're running out of time, but I'd love for you to touch on is, with the inauguration.
I could channel my alpha brother and what he would think during this time period. Especially given the last week. It's unfortunate that he's not still with us, so we could actually hear, what he would have to say. But I think he would just harp on just some of the inequities and what we've seen as it relates to protest and kind of how Black and brown bodies have been treated differently than white individuals. And so I think that if it was a group of Black individuals and they attempted to get close to the steps of the Capitol and then into the Capitol, that I think the response would have been a little bit different. I think that the call for backup and the call for more officers would have happened a lot sooner. I think that, they would have been over militarized and prepared for that kind of those groups of individuals where, as we saw, some of the Trump supporters and predominantly white weren't met with the same pushback, as for a lighter term, or violence from the police, when they decided to exercise their freedom and to speak out. So
Speaking of speaking out, next week, guys, we will have students from local high schools and middle schools who will be on to follow up where Mr. John just left off. So if you're out there and you'd like to join us next week in discussing the most recent insurgent as well as the inauguration, give us a call at 561-665-0151, or you can email us at info@kopmn.org, info@kopmn.org, and you'll be given a ticket, front seat ticket to join the discussion next week. Now, Mr. John, with the inauguration, I know that in the past they've done the inauguration on the steps outside. Will the swearing in still go on outside? Have they canceled certain programs? How safe will it be for people to attend this event this year?
Wanted to do a quick rundown. I got a quick schedule, so I'm gonna kind of go through this quickly. So of course the swearing in is January 20th. The theme of it is America United. So that's the theme of the inauguration. And it's supposed to reflect the beginning of a new national journey that restores the soul of America, brings the country together, and creates a path to a brighter future. So as it relates to safety, it's a top priority. The ceremony will feature vigorous health and safety protocols, including face coverings, and they're asking the American people to stay home and celebrate virtually. In-person attendance is limited to Congress due to safety protocols. So as you can imagine, on the 20th, as we're used to seeing crowds and crowds of people, that this time is really going to be limited to Congress. I assume usually the Supreme Court justice gives the inauguration, the actual the oath, and so I assume that it's going to be limited to that. And the encouraging thing is that that they tell us to celebrate virtually, and so they talked about blocking off different areas, and it will kick off at noon. He will officially be sworn in.
Will we have to pay to attend that? We get these emails and texts every day asking and begging for money. Will this be a fundraiser for them?
It doesn't appear so. It looks like we'll be able to all participate in the ceremony virtually.
Okay, got you. Well, all right, that's it.
Absolutely. That's all I got.
Well, all right, man. We will see you next week. Hot and
absolutely.
Yes, sir. Hey,
Everyone.
what's on tap for the weekend?
Oh dear, I think he's gone by now. So before we move on, let's make a challenge to all the youth out there. We have a treat for you. What is the first state to adopt Martin Luther King Day as a state holiday, and when?
Yes,
and the second part to this question is, what is the state to adopt a holiday honoring Dr. King, and when? Send your responses to info@kopminternetwork.org by 3 p.m. Friday, January 22nd. Drawing will be on Friday, January 29th. So hopefully you get your responses out for that.
And Daryl, as I turn my chair over to Dina, I leave with you guys these words. Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are. Wanted to ask John one question before he left. Neil, get that clip ready for me, please. John, are you still there? Can you join us again, please? Had a quick question for you before you. Anyway, I wanted to ask John, had the moving trucks been in Washington yet, or are they coming? When are they coming? But Neil, go ahead with your clip.
I'm back.
Yeah. One last question: when will the movers arrive? When is moving day, or have they already?
It appears that President Trump will not. At least he stated that he will not attend the inauguration, and so I know that they're planning to send him off in the morning. He'll leave Washington just before the inauguration, and so I assume that they probably have moving trucks and getting everything packed up, and so So yeah, that looks like that's gonna be the the vibe and the tenor of what it looks like so far. So
Just curious to see how many people will be out there to wave goodbye to their beloved neighbor. Anyway, thanks again, man.
Right, thank you, sir. Just like we can never learn all about Black history in the month of February, we cannot all learn about Dr. King in one night. Tonight, we learned about his early life, his teachings, and his philosophy. To give us another perspective is our very own former Delray Beach Mayor, Jeff Pearlman. Mr. Mayor, welcome back. It's nice to have you in again.
How you doing? Hi, Daryl. I see you're
How
on.
are you?
I'm
Mr.
good. How
Mayor?
are you doing? Happy New Year.
Great so far, sir. So many people, including his very own, despised and rejected Dr. King when he was very active in his pursuit of civil rights through non-violent means. Why do you think this is so?
I think when people try to achieve change, they get reactions extreme on either side. So they get people that love what they're doing, and then they get people that are threatened by the change. And so they get those extreme reactions. So he did have a lot of people that loved him and still love him, and he did inspire, unfortunately, a backlash to some of the things that he was talking about. But I think that's just part of the game when you want to make change.
Definitely have to have that bit of, restraint in it to give you that push, I suppose.
Exactly. Not everyone will agree with you.
That's highly unreasonable to think of that. Definitely, Dina. So would it be safe to say that he meant more to many, or that he was more respected in death than he was in life?
I think, unfortunately, that is true. And part of it is because he died before he was 40 years old. When you think about that, how tragic that is, that's very young. I know it probably seems old to you and Daryl, but 40 is young, and he didn't even reach his 40th birthday. So we've had 50 plus years without him. He would have been 92 this year. And he's meant more over time, I think, because we've absorbed some of these lessons. We've studied his writings. We've listened to his speeches. And unfortunately, we're still in the process of trying to achieve the dream that he talked about. So he remains extremely relevant and extremely alive in our hearts and minds, because we still are on that journey. We are still not at the destination that he and others foresaw. And so he's very relevant today, maybe more so in 2021 than ever, because of what's going on in our society.
Definitely.
And history never fails to teach us. Oh Lord.
Isn't that the
Does
truth?
teach us, but we have to listen. We have to listen. So we can absorb these lessons. It's so important to listen. And we were taught, I think, a big lesson on January 6th, only 9 days ago, where there was an attempt to overthrow an election in America. And had that been successful, we don't have a country anymore because we don't have a democracy. So hopefully we learn that lesson, and we all kind of appreciate the democracy that we have, that we took for granted.
Definitely.
Exactly. We must learn from history, of course. We hear a lot about Dr. King's contribution to the civil rights movement with the bus boycott, the striking of sanitation workers, and even the marches that he led. What are some of the lesser known contributions that he made to society? Especially with non-Blacks and children.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think he was also extremely influential in how we think about poverty, homelessness, beyond civil rights, just nonviolence as a philosophy, as a concept. He was anti-war. All of these are big ideas, and I think the other thing that doesn't get talked about, but his dream was a global dream. It wasn't just for the United States, which obviously he was trying to impact here, but his vision was for people all over the world to have equality and to be safe and to have a nice home and not have any poverty. And that was a global vision. So I think that's not talked about a lot, but he was a world figure, not just an American hero.
Exactly. And even this dream, we're still working towards it now with much more people in poverty, especially with the COVID-19 that forced people to stay at home and not able to afford things more. Whenever there is a case of injustice in this country, we can always count on Reverend Al Sharpton, as we saw with George Floyd's murder and Breonna Taylor, to be one of the voice in the African American community. For those of us who can't, like me, who can't imagine what Dr. King was like, were his actions similar to that of Reverend Sharpton's?
Oh, I think so. I think that example inspired generations of people like Reverend Sharpton, Jim Clyburn, a congressman from South Carolina, who I think Joe Biden wouldn't have been elected president if it wasn't for Jim Clyburn giving him that endorsement. We lost this year John Lewis, who was a student of Dr. King, and his admonition to people was to make good trouble. And making good trouble is sometimes speaking truth to power and having the courage to do that. And it takes courage to do that, but it's so important. And so there are wonderful examples. Then there's others, I think, still inspired by what Dr. King did 50 plus years ago.
Yes, and that's why we must get into good trouble, necessary trouble, to ensure that his dream become a reality now.
It's true, and I'm impressed. I'm so impressed with Daryl and Dina and the show and the KOP network. It gives the old guys like me very good feelings about the future, because it's been a little depressing. 2020 was not a great year, and we started off 2021. It wasn't so hot either. But I think what we're seeing with the young leaders in our community and all over the country, we have something to look forward to. So I thank you for the example that you're setting. Here you are on a Friday night talking about big subjects, but they're important subjects. So I think we have a bright future as a result of what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your contributions, because we're just, continuing the work that so many before us have done.
And I think that's a great point, in that the work is never really done. I've read recently that America is a destination. So you're kind of on this journey and toward a more perfect union. And we may never get there, but we have to make it better for the next generation. That's our job. And I think that we have some good examples from the past, but our job is to take those examples and build on that foundation, and then we'll have a better world.
That is indeed our goal. Thank you so much for joining us.
You.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you soon. Take care.
Take care. Have a good night. So everyone, thank you again. That will about do it for this week's edition of Community Conversation. We hope you learned something tonight that will make a significant impact on your life for this year. Young people, There is no greater investment you can make on a Friday night than being with like-minded peeps like us in community conversation. We may have had a bit of a rocky start with the audio, but like with the rest of the year, we'll keep it flowing. Thank you to all of our guests for participating to enlighten us, and a big sincere shout out to the Boca Raton Tribune for simulcasting us on Facebook and YouTube. A special thanks to our sponsors, Healthy Delray Beach, Block New Look Barbershop, DNA Total Fitness, Jeff Stern CPA, Wellness Financial, Roots and Wings, Ezra Krieg, Marsha Eisenberg, and Doug Young. As we wrap up tonight's lesson, we leave you with this message.
A mask can say a lot about the person who wears it. But even more about the person who doesn't.
Be safe, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and let's stay together as a nation as we commemorate Dr. King. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good one.
Information. If it exists in writing, we print it. If it exists online, we update it. If it exists on mobile, we notify. If it exists in video, we show it. If it exists in audio, we play it. In the past, the news had to wait for a paper to print for it to happen. Today, news happens in real time. It's analyzed, edited, and published immediately by us, your neighbors, and of course, you. Wherever you are, you write, edit, give opinions, share photos, and make the news happen. This is why a paper needs to be on print, on screen, and on your phone. Wherever you are, your news has its pulse in the community. The Boca Raton Tribune. We are much more than just a newspaper. We are your closest neighbor.